Hey there everybody, I'm Rilo and I'm playing EVE Online. The December release has finally rolled out and now we have additional 13 ships to pilot in the game. Each of those ships comes from the 4 empires, as well as an additional ship from Ore, which is the ice mining frigate, which I'll look into a little bit later. But for now we can take a look. For example, with Caldari we have the Griffin Navy issue, which is a Navy ECM frigate, as well as a Tech 2 logistics frigate, the Karen, and we also have the command destroyer, the Stork. So let's take a look at what defines these ships and how are they different between the 4 empires. Alright, let's take a look at all the electronic warfare Navy frigates side by side. The Crucifier is all about weapon disruption. You get 7.5% bonus to effectiveness, as well as minus 85% penalty to optimal range, and minus 85% reduction in activation cost and CPU requirements. And it has a boost of 20% to the small energy turret. The Griffin Navy issue is all about the ECM target jammer. So 20% bonus to the strength, minus 85% penalty to the optimal range and falloff, and minus 85% reduction in activation cost and CPU requirements. The Visual Fleet issue has a lot of bonuses to the rocket damage, 5% bonus to explosion velocity, 25% bonus to explosive rocket damage, and 20% bonus to EM kinetic and thermal rocket damage. But of course the main electronic warfare bonus is the 50% bonus to the Stasis Webifier optimal range. Now last but not least we have the Mollusk Navy issue, and right away I can see that it has +2 scramble strength to all warp scramblers. But only the scramblers, the bonuses are not applicable to the warp disruptors. So it has an additional 10% bonus to the warp scrambler optimal range, and not to leave it in the dust compared to the other 3, it has 10% bonus to the drone hit points and tracking speed. I can see Visual Fleet issue being much more of a brawler and being used in solo PvP activities. The Mollusk I see in a bit of a more support role in PvP, especially in a small gang fleet, but the two, the Visual and the Mollusk used side by side, would be very potent opponents. Although I see the potential of all these frigates to be used for solo PvP, and I think that was the intention of CCP when they introduced these ships. Not surprising when looking at the attributes of these Navy issue electronic warfare frigates, the Visual Fleet issue actually is the fastest with a maximum velocity of 400 meters per second, followed by the Crucifier, the Griffin, and last the Mollusk. The Mollusk is the slowest of them all. But what it lacks in speed, of course it makes up in drone capacity and drone bandwidth, although all of these ships are capable of deploying drones. The fitting, however, does differ between all 4. The Crucifier Navy issue and the Visual Fleet issue have the same 3-4-3 configuration, whereas Griffin has a 3-5-2, which is not that many low power slots in my opinion, and the Mollusk has 2-3-4, so a lot of low power slots. And the requirements aren't really demanding as expected with the Navy issue frigates. And now let's take a look at the new Tech 2 Logi frigates. We have the Amar Deacon, the Caldari Karen, the Minotaur Scalpel, and the Galante Thalia. All of these are familiar ship hulls, there's no new hulls so far. And as expected, the Amar and the Galante are repairing the armor, whereas the Caldari and the Minotaur will be repairing the shields. Comparing the Karen and the Scalpel, pretty much everything is the same except for what are the bonuses for the logistics frigate skill. The Caldari Karen gets 7.5% bonus to all the shield hit points, whereas the Scalpel will get a 4% reduction in the signature radius. And that's the same way between the Deacon and the Thalia. The Thalia will get a 4% reduction in signature radius, whereas the Deacon will have 75% bonus to all the armor hit points. Looking at the attributes, once again the Minotaur frigate will be the fastest at 415 meters per second maximum velocity, followed by the Galante Thalia, then the Amar Deacon, and the slowest one in this case will be the Caldari Karen at only 370 meters per second. And in this case, the fitting arrangement of all 4 frigates is completely different from one another. The Deacon has a 3-2-5 configuration, the Karen is 3-5-2, Scalpel is 3-4-3, and finally Thalia is 3-3-4. The training requirements for these frigates are not that intense, provided you have the racial frigate trained to level 5, you only have to train the logistics frigate skill to level 1. And then you will be able to fly these ships. I'm rather curious to see how the ships will be used in battle, and whether they will replace the traditional logistics cruisers. I can see how these ships will be very useful in small gang PvP. And now finally let's talk about the new command destroyers. So these command destroyers were designed specifically to be used with the micro jump field generator, which is a new module that teleports the ship and all the ships in the vicinity 100 kilometers in the direction that the ship is facing. So that's going to be a very interesting mechanic, especially in PvP or gate camping. But for now, let's take a look at all the 4 ships. There isn't too much difference between all 4 when it comes to the traits. So each destroyer gets a 5% reduction in the microfield generator's pull-up time, as well as 2% bonus to the armored warfare or siege warfare depending on the racial destroyer, as well as the skirmish warfare or the information warfare, once again depending on which empire the destroyer belongs to. As well as everybody gets the 95% reduction to power grid requirements of the warfare links, as well as the 50% reduction in micro-warp drive signature radius penalty. With the attributes, once again it's no surprise that the Minmatar destroyer will be the fastest one, but the difference between all 4 is not that significant. And as expected from the traits, both the Amar Pontifex and the Galente Magus are able to deploy drones, whereas the Caldari Stork and the Minmatar Bifrost do not have any drones available for them. The fitting layout of all 4 is once again different. The Pontifex has a 5-3-5 configuration, the Stork has a 6-6-2, the Bifrost has a 6-5-3, and the Magus has a 5-4-4. Both the Stork and the Bifrost have 5 available launcher hardpoints, but for some reason the Pontifex is split 3-3, and what's even weirder, the Magus has a 3-1 split between the turrets and the launcher hardpoints. But since both of these destroyers deploy drones, I'm not sure how useful the hardpoints are going to be. The skill training requirements for all these 4 destroyers so far are the longest compared to all the other new ships, considering the fact that I personally have not trained my destroyers to level 5 yet, so I have about 17 days of training to go through before I am able to fly any of these. But what you need is a racial destroyer at level 5, and then the command destroyers at level 1, with the minimum on level 1, and of course the warfare link specialist at level 4. Now these 4 destroyers I definitely see more as a support role in large-scale PvP, especially with the micro-jump field generator module assigned to them. It'll be very interesting to see how it's used in warfare, whether for defense or offense. The PvP dynamics are definitely going to be changing with this new release. And last but not least, the ship that I'm most looking forward to is the Endurance. It is a Tech 2 expedition frigate specifically designed for ice harvesting. It has got 5% reduction in ice harvesting duration, as well as a 4% bonus to all chill resistances. The mining frigate scale bonus provides 5% reduction in ice harvesting duration and 5% bonus to ore mining, so you can actually mine ore with this frigate as well. And the roll bonus is 200% bonus to the ore mining yield, 50% reduction in ice harvesting duration, and 50% reduction in cloaking device CPU requirements. And the cool thing is that the cloak reactivation delay and targeting delay reduced to 5 seconds, as well as there is no penalty to ship max velocity when using the cloaking devices. That's pretty cool. When it comes to the attributes, the ship has a 200 cubic meters of cargo hold capacity, as well as the 15,000 cubic meters of ore hold capacity. Its maximum velocity is 420 meters per second, and it is able to deploy 3 small drones at a time. As for the fitting layout, it's quite expected the 3-4-3 layout, as well as the ability to install 1 turret. And the skill training requirements I thankfully have already completed. It's not much different from the Prospect I would imagine, but the mining frigate has to be at level 5, as well as the expedition frigate has to be minimum at level 1. As to the making of this video, there is no sell orders on the market, and I'm located in Jeddah, so that's quite interesting. So either nobody has made it yet, or people are just selling directly to the buyers. But let's compare it to the Prospect and see how the two differ from each other. So comparing the traits of Endurance and the Prospect, I can see the overlap is in the ore mining. The Prospect will not be able to perform ice harvesting as well as the Endurance, and on the other hand, the Endurance will not be able to perform gas cloud harvesting as well as the Prospect. But comparing all the bonuses for ore mining, the Endurance seems to be a better option, particularly because it provides 300% bonus to ore mining yield, whereas the Prospect only has 100 bonus to mining. The only other difference I see in the traits between the Prospect and the Endurance is that the Prospect specifically states that it can use the covered ops cloaking device, whereas the Endurance seems to be able to use only the Tech 1 and Tech 2 cloaking devices. I will have to confirm that when I'll actually be able to fly the ship, but it would seem to be like a fair trade between the two. The other major differences I can see right away is that the Endurance is much faster compared to the Prospect, as well as it's able to deploy drones whereas the Prospect can't. And very importantly, the ore hold capacity is 5,000 cubic meters higher in Endurance compared to the Prospect. So overall, the Endurance becomes much more attractive frigate for ore mining or ice harvesting, with the exception that it cannot fit the covered ops cloaking device. But it can still cloak up and there will not be any penalties to speed, which is quite important when you're trying to hide in an asteroid belt. The fitting layout is quite similar between the two, with the exception that one of the low power slots is being traded for a medium power slot in the Endurance. So it's a 3-4-3 compared to the 3-3-4. So my first impressions of the Endurance is that it is not as elusive as the Venture, of course, and it is much more attractive to ore mining and ice harvesting, but not so much when it comes to gas cloud harvesting. The Prospect is still the king when it comes to the expedition frigates for that. But I'll be doing a much more in-depth analysis of the Endurance once I'll be able to fly the ship and compare it to the Prospect and the Venture. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you're enjoying the new December release for EVE Online. I welcome your comments on these new ships that are available in-game, whether you think they'll be used often or not at all. And as usual, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more EVE Online and other gaming videos. Safe flying out there!